Hi, I'm Hallie. Welcome back to my channel. Today I am starting a new series and it's based on ferns, and there's a story to go with it. So this is the story that goes along with this journal, and let me read the back of it. So, meet Fernie, née Fanny FitzWilliam, living in the 1800s. Born the daughter of a prominent botanist and professor at a university, she earns the nickname from her father on one of their field expeditions. She discovers ferns at a time when proper young ladies did not scamper about the countryside. She unknowingly begins a trend that will last 50 years and will spark a fern renaissance across parks, gardens, art, music, and home decor. She is a creative young lady whom girls from any century can relate. Follow along as she discovers a mysterious past she doesn't know she has. Learn with her as she follows her curiosity in the natural world and writes and draws and paints. Watch as she negotiates difficult and tedious neighbors and family members. Doesn't everyone have a Florence in her life? Find out. So that's the back of it, and here's the front, Fernie's World, and this is the first chapter, so I'm going to read it to you. Fanny was unintentional in her pursuit of ferns. It was her nature and curiosity of nature that led her into the woods with her father, a botanist, and her older brother, William. Her father was more intent on the measuring and preserving of botanical specimens with their proper Latin names, and William was more interested in the artistic rendering of the landscape. Initially, it was to stay out of the way so that Papa wouldn't leave her behind with Nurse and her younger siblings. She was not to touch any of the plants with which he was working, and she was not to stand in William's view. On a hot, sunny day by Queen's Brook, as Papa collected and William sketched, Fanny grew weary from the heat. "Fanny," said Papa, "fill the water flask for us, please," as he handed her his field flask. She followed the path down to the creek and filled it. At 6 years old, she was happy that she could be helpful in such serious scientific endeavors, if only to bring water. She took a long drink, refilled the flask, and brought it back. "Here, Papa." Papa took a drink and handed it to William. She was delighted that they could forego the social propriety of cups and be, quote, heathen barbarians, as her mother called them when they were out in the wilds of nature. As Papa wiped his brow, he said, "What did you notice at the creek?" She knew he was asking a botanical question, but she was more impressed with the frogs that had jumped into the water with several plops at her approach. "I saw several amphibia of the Animalia kingdom," she answered. Papa laughed. He looked down affectionately at his daughter with her damp forehead and flushed cheeks. "Perhaps you will find something of botanical interest in the shade by the brook," he suggested. As she settled on a large boulder with a mossy patch, she noticed that flowers weren't growing in this part of the landscape. In fact, it was cooler and darker and somehow greener. She brushed her hand through the lush moss and gently rested her cheek against it. She closed her eyes and took in a deep breath of the earthy fragrance about her. No flowers here with their wafting sweet scents. She opened her eyes and stared intently across the creek, waiting patiently for the frogs to reappear. As she did, she took notice of the ferns. How beautiful and abundant they were! She felt a slight breeze and watched as it rustled through the ferns to make them sway and dance. How delightful! "Papa," she called out, forgetting to be quiet for the frogs, "what is the botanical name for ferns?" Papa smiled and called back, "Teratophyta." She sat up and ran back to her father with gleaming eyes. "I suppose," he said, smiling and reaching into his field satchel, "you'll be in want of a proper sketchbook." And so it began. And then there's a little coloring fern on the back there for this. And this goes with the journal. So that's the story. I'll be giving story updates every Friday for Fernie's World. And you can follow along. And I'll also have a playlist where I'm just reading the stories. And then I am coordinating journals and digikits and things to go with these stories. But that's it for now. See you next Friday. Bye.